Lee, thanks very much. Time is both our friend and enemy, and it's been a very full day. And it's left to me to try and hopefully summarise the day and to give you some further food for thought. Like everything, when we come to conferences of this kind, we're looking for something that will improve our specific working environment, personally and professionally. By your presence here, it means you're still passionate about what you do. As I was recounting some of those experiences of what Sportivate provides, I recollected that for at least half of my life, I represented that Sportivate and 20th century sport for all experience, whether it be from disaffection, alienation, or hard to reach. I was engaged in the East End of London, in Hackney, where I grew up, where colour of my skin and my social disaffection suggested I might have been outside waiting for you rather than inside talking to you. Worked that one out. But the bottom line was, a combat sport gave me a focus and channel for my energy. There was also, in understanding women volunteers, a mother that was the most intense coach I've ever had. The bottom line of this was achieving my medals in my sport of karate, took my medals to street to stadium, and then the ability back on the streets to serve in sports administration and to be part of that 20-year legacy of bidding and hosting of major games. And what I want to try and do is take you on that journey, but only within the headlines, because I think we all understand what legacy means and what it doesn't mean, what it's achieved and what it hasn't achieved. But ultimately, it's about what we do next, how policy translates into something seriously sustainable in its action and how it can engage, motivate and inspire young people and communities. Young people are my thing. That's what I've dedicated the other 25 years of my existence. And if nothing else, I guarantee and recommend work with them, they keep you young. On that basis, it means that the behaviour, lifestyles and trends are different. They have more now than they ever have required or wanted. We are about what they need. But I'm just going to take you on a story, because that story is a journey and the signers are going to have to keep up, because I'm going to move at pace. Manchester, you're keeping up?
Trying to.
Brilliant. But ultimately, the sign and language, any language, is the common language that sport provides and the major games provides. And in Manchester, you'd have noticed that from my East End background, in Manchester is where I relocated and supported a then 2000 Olympic bid. On January the 3rd, in 1993, a 14-year-old schoolboy was shot dead on the streets of Moss Side. His name was Benji Stanley. There are times in life where you're challenged to do the right thing. As Peter said earlier, it's about doing the right thing. I was involved in Live Aid in '85. I went back on the streets, and with sport, I decided we needed a youth charter. Why? Because A, not many people said no to me, but B, sport for all had become sport for a few. Not many people said no, a lot of people got behind it. We launched at Wembley, and we went through a journey. But as the journey went from the Manchester Olympic bid to the successful Commonwealth Games, all that would happen with the county sports partnerships, all that would happen with the game plan strategy, things were not right in how we translated that policy into making a difference in the lives of all young people, inner city, suburban or rural, locally, nationally and internationally. Because guess what? Unless we can engage young people on the basis that within a 15-second click of their thumbs, which are the most physically interactive members of their body, they are engaging with a global audience of trends and behavioural lifestyle influences that would suggest learning does not happen within the classroom anymore. It's a 24/7 learning experience. The legacy opportunity for all, by way of London 2012 and the pledges made and the recognition by Tracy Crouch that we had failed, meant we had to look at a new strategy, a new way of doing things. And it was a personal and a professional held view that she then embarked on a major consultation. And I have to agree that the strategy is the best that I've witnessed in my 25 years of public life. But the burning issues are there for you to absorb, because they're now becoming something by a national governing body, whether it's by the executive chairman of the Premier League, or, but more importantly, Paul Skelso, the Sky Sports correspondent. British sport has had a wonderful spectacle, but the spoils have not been evenly shared. And we're in danger of having nothing to show for it as our memory. And the treasure has to be how what young people were promised is actually delivered on. We simply engage young people through sport, culture, arts and digital. We equip them with the mental, physical, emotional resilience and life skills, and then we empower them. Because it's all right giving them sport inclusion, but when they then are given the resilience, tools and ambition and aspiration, they've got to be able to be further or higher in their education, they've got to be employable, and they're going to be entrepreneurial, because they don't all want to work for you. Is there anyone here working with young people? Okay, for those of you who aren't, why not? They're the best return on your investment, short, mid and long term. And they are an intergenerational currency, because the young can look after the old, and the old can impart some wisdom and look after the young. That's what they do in Africa with no social services or no governance and infrastructure and grants. It's real, it's achievable, and it's doable. We've achieved much, but it's not about what we've achieved or the journey to date, because that's all there for posterity. It's what's happening in the now. Ultimately, there are three barriers, and we've consulted long and wide in this country, because it was clear that young people felt the barriers were economic. They couldn't get in the facilities. So it was somewhere to go. Ultimately, once they got in those facilities and it was something to do, it wasn't diverse enough and it didn't meet their needs. But then more critically, once they had something to do, it was someone to show them. We had volunteers, we had coaches who were looking for skills, talent and medals, but ultimately weren't looking at truly widening participation beyond that one box ticked. And that box didn't have any depth, it didn't have any substance, and it didn't have any magic that could create something special. So in Manchester, where we have focused most of our work in our local model, with youth services being cut, the then Chief Executive, Sir Howard Bernstein, challenged us to see how we could make the youth service part of the community and cultural services. So we developed a community campus. 7 facilities, whatever it is, some school, church, building, communities, whatever it was, 7 hub facilities that would make a fundamental commitment to 5 hours of access, free as a fundamental human right to young people per week, 35 hours. It could be one facility offering 10 or 20 hours, but the key was they needed to be given somewhere to go. Once in there, they would help create the activity, and then more importantly, we'd look at a multi-agency collaboration. This one is one we're doing with the University of Salford, an industry collaboration, because the public-private third sector that's arguably too competitive in their combativeness has already been shared by many of the presenters, means that we have to be consortia-driven. We have to look at the social, cultural, and economic win-win-win. How you doing?
Trying my best.
You're there. Ultimately, that win-win-win would have a significant impact on the 5 areas that I feel would tax all of us in our public or private sector lives. Educational attainment, the mental health and well-being that is active in its lifestyle, so as to see social order in the discipline that doesn't become disaffected, antisocial, gang-related, or extreme to our society, can be community cohesive with a green environment as a productive environment that is underpinned by skills, vocation, employment, and enterprise. This is the Media City community campus that we're now developing with 160 agencies. Because ultimately, widening participation is about a sub-regional model. Yvonne Harrison talked about the Greater Manchester Moving Strategy. We have a combined authority. We have a devolved mayoral political oversight now, and we're beginning to join the dots up and make sure that every single citizen is not left behind. I mentioned what the key silver bullet in all of this is. In simple terms, if you want to widen participation and reach every community, inner city, suburban or rural, you need coaches. Sport England has a coaching and volunteering strategy. I believe we need a social coach currency, a new movement that can engage, equip and empower, motivate and inspire the young people and wider community that would see, by way of Tracy Crouch's strategic wish, to see communities empowered bottom up. Because the truth of the matter is, we've had a third world aid culture to support inclusion to those communities. And that is why after hundreds of millions of pounds invested, we still have the inequalities, we're still not cohesive, we're not collaborative, and we're not sustainable. The characteristics are very simple. In those core characteristics, it's confidence, dedication, giving, respect, spirituality, and conviction. Those are some core values I'll go into at the end and where they've come from. But by way of that Olympic spirit, the Paralympic spirit, and what it does for our communities, with what was a 13 billion investment in those London Games, how could there not be a return to the whole nation? How could Team GP in 2 games not inspire a generation? And how, in inspiring that generation, it not be a win-win-win for everybody? We've set about a very ambitious plan. The ambitions of that plan is the 2016 Games Legacy Impact Report. The executive summary is in your delegate packs, so I won't bore you, but it is underpinned with 200 pages of facts, figures, evidence, data, insight, but ultimately real-life case studies. Because if the social coaches are going to do what I believe and hope they will do, if we can develop 10,000 of them over the next 4-year cycle, but at a cost of £11 million, which against 10,000 police officers at 300 million and 3,000 per head, you can start to see why we start to make sense in how we can coordinate as a sector and a movement to actually secure the additional resources we don't have, but that we're competing for in a small piece of a pie. We need to make a bigger pie, and we need to bring everyone to that table where every option is being considered. That's a plan that's been well considered, and I've asked for the best minds in the country to advise, inform, and provide this win-win-win for everybody. There is a way within the business apprenticeship levy to pay for all of this. Sport is a multi-billion industry, and the grassroots levy commitment of the Premiership alone could pay for those social coaches and a lot of the grants, the small grants that we need in those communities. Because the one thing I would say to you, as confident as I am about how we can widen this participation, if we succeed, we're going to need to meet that expectation. There have been so many projects and initiatives that have slowly ground to a halt because we didn't have a sustainability and succession plan. This levy is possible. The government have put a pause on the levy because it is oversubscribed. Sport on its own, with the national governing bodies and with the professional bodies of sport, can actually pay for this. This is all reflected in the presentation slide that you can give the devil in the detail and actually look at what it means. But every single city, every single community, inner city, suburban or rural, can actually benefit from this golden opportunity. The social coaches are in action. We currently have 200 registered from all walks of life. And we have an online platform that can map, track and measure, provide the open data, feed into a county sports partnership and look at the skills agenda in a way that we haven't done in recent years. Because we have millions and billions of pounds being invested, but we don't have the young people's skills, especially in data currency, that would make use of this opportunity. They don't want to work, but if we give them a reason to work and we give them an investment in return on what that can look like, then I believe the new movement that's required can actually become a reality. Our development goals are simple. The outputs and the outcomes are achievable. It's a well-costed, strategically aligned plan of action. But it does require all the things that we're talking about there in the platforms that are being created, that it truly does become something that isn't just that data-rich mind, individually shared or common in behavioural lifestyle trends informing a better use of and there are no limited resources. We have 3 billion. The sugar tax alone will pay for what we need. But we shouldn't take it for granted, and we must have carefully costed plans, proposals, strategies, and the people and the agencies who will be able to deliver this. The community campuses are as local as they are global. We live in a 24 years of a 21st century global community. But please don't underestimate young people's creativity and ingenuity. In 140 characters, one Instagram, image posted, they can change the world. The young people who caused the havoc last weekend were under the age of 20. The young person who resolved it was under the age of 20. We have to be able to use that currency of intelligent, clever planning and creativity for that greater good, because it's the right thing to do. When I was asked to summarize this particular conference, I thought about it long and hard, because it's been an incredible journey where tragedy has produced an opportunity. But I would equally say to you that since launching a report at the House of Commons 3 weeks ago, 10 young lives have been lost in London. 2 of them were involved in the type of projects that Lee presented through Sportivate. One from Fight for Peace, and the other was simply on his way to do some sport. The capital city and many cities are not safe. And if the environment isn't safe, how can we enjoy the healthy and physical lifestyle opportunities that we wish to see happen? There were 2 young girls of age 12 playing tennis in an inner city environment in a park. The other 12-year-old boy was showing off, because that's what they do. He tried to impress. There was a slight argument and a knife came out, and he tried to impress, because that's all he knows. He's now in the youth justice system. He will cost us a fortune. And I sometimes wonder if the vaccine and antidote of sport and the arts and cultural activity and digital activity are not beginning to wear off. So I do want to say to you, once the policy is all considered, once the strategy and insight is all considered, please get down to some good old-fashioned common sense engagement. Because it's learning as you're doing and doing as you're learning. There will nothing that will ever replace the real currency of going out there, rolling out your sleeves and getting involved. So if you haven't got young people advising you, get them close to you, because they may not say much, but they're being interactively active and actively interactive. You need to engage the software between their ears. You need to have them part of whatever it is you're doing, and you will get a great return on your investment. It needs to be intergenerational. It needs to be national in its pride and local in its currency and value. And if there's one thing we need to achieve, is we need to move quickly. Irrespective of what politicians do, I've served 5 prime ministers in public life. They'll never deliver. They deliver when they finish their term of office. Don't expect ministers to do it, because they can't. It's what you do that makes a difference, and then Purdo doesn't become an issue of consideration. We've got to give the collaborative and collective will, and we've got to challenge with a plan that is not only framed, modelled, delivered, but achievable and sustainable. If you do that, all things are on the table, all bets are on, and we can win a rebalancing that I feel is required in this green and pleasant land. The Y Sport Conference has challenged. It has informed. It started in Manchester. It came to the Midlands in Wolverhampton, where I was born and bred. So you see my accent changed very quickly because my skin was not an option. So I learned to adapt. But I am here to say to you, it is not about the medals. It is about the taking part. The National Front is who I always eternally accredit for my reasons for learning to look after myself. I was also a bit of an entrepreneur at school. My mother's West Indian patties gave me the flair to be more successful than Alan Sugar, who was selling transistor radios at Brookhouse Secondary. But what I will say to you is this: you need to engage equipping in power. You need to get away from this sector into combative nature and culture. And as the late President Mandela did, he used sport as a vaccine and an antidote to give him breathing space in the post-apartheid South Africa. They didn't have money, but my God, did they have people of extraordinary commitment of Ubuntu, which is just simply community spirit. The Muhammad Ali legacy of confidence, conviction, dedicated giving, respect and spirituality is the greatest Olympian. And someone that can inspire, because we need to be in the business of inspiration. So as you go away from this conference, by June the 8th, we will have a new government. It might be the same of the same, or it might be new, because take nothing for granted in this uncertain world. But one thing I'd like to believe is we will remain consistent, dedicated and committed to how we can improve the life chances of this physically active nation. Travel safely. Thank you for coming.